Okay, today in this lesson, we're going to talk about properties of addition and multiplication. And these are properties that students will commonly use in sixth grade and beyond. Now, some of these properties they may have or most likely have been introduced to in prior grades. However, they may not have called them by the same name. For example, the commutative property. This property tells us that the order of the numbers when you're adding or multiplying can change, but the answer will be the same. So if you were to add 6 plus 3, the commutative property says that if we switch the order of those numbers and we do 3 plus 6, we're going to get the same answer. So um, 6 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 6, or 5 times 4, that's a multiplication symbol, is 4 times 5. And in earlier grade levels, they may have called these turnaround facts because the facts are switched around and you get the same answer. So students may be familiar with the property, but they may not be familiar with the property name. So that is the commutative property, quite simply, is that you can change the order, but you will get the same answer. And you can use a longer expression with something like this. You can say 15 plus 4 plus 5 is the same as 5 plus 15. I'm changing the order, plus 4. If you rearrange the order like that, it might be making your addition a little bit easier. 15 and 5 might be easier to add together first, and then you add on the 4. So changing the order can change. The order can change, but the answer is the same. And this is when it is all addition or all multiplication. We will not be mixing signs in here and saying that we can change the order and that the answer will stay the same. We will all adding or all multiplying. At times, I ask students if this will apply for subtraction and division because sometimes they think, they don't think operation specific. And so I will ask them to prove that. Is 6 minus 3 the same as 3 minus 6? And we can look at a number line to show that. We can start at 6 and jump back 3 places and see that we end at 3. We can start on a number line at 3 and jump back 6 places and see that we end up at -3. So it is good once in a while to have those discussions to kind of have students prove that these properties only work for adding and multiplying. The associative property, moving on, associative, says grouping can change, but the answer is the same. So if we looked at this prior example, we could say, I'm going to add 15 and 4 first and get 19, and then add on my 5 to get 24. Or I could group these numbers this way to make it a little easier mentally. I could group them and do 15 plus 5 first and get 20, and then 24. So this is just saying we can change around the grouping. We're still going to get the same answer. So if we had 25 times 12 times 4, we might, and say, okay, let's do 25 times 12 first and then multiply by 4. We might say, you know what, I want to change my grouping. And in this way, I'm also changing my order. And I'm going to do 25 times 4 first because I know that's 100. And then I can multiply by 12 and get 1200. No matter which way I do it, 25 times 12 first, which gives me 300, and then multiply by 4, or make it a little easier in my head, 25 times 4 is 100, and then times 12, I will get the same answer. So that is the basic premise of the associative property, that I can just group them differently and I'll get the same answer. Now, the distributive property can be a little bit more complex. Basically, the distributive property says if I'm going to multiply a number times another number, I need to multiply it by each part of that number. So I'm going to multiply the 5 times 30 and the 5 times 7. And oftentimes we will end up writing it like this so that we can see we have broken it into the place values, 30 and 7. And then we multiply the 5 times both parts. So 5 times 30 is 150. 5 times 7 is 35. and then we add that together to get 185. And that can be a lot easier for students than if they're trying to do it mentally and not trying to go through the multiplication algorithm in their head. They can think about breaking the numbers apart in this way and then adding them together, and it can make it a little bit easier. So if they wanted to do 4 times 126, for example, that would be 4 times 100 and 20 and 6. So we would say 4 times 100 is 400. I'll make my little arrows here. 4 times 100, then 4 times 20, and then 4 times 6. 4 times 20 is 80, and 4 times 6 is 24. So 400 plus 80 is 480, plus 24 is 504. And that is the distributive property. And that can be used in many ways, and students will see the distributive property used over and over and over again as they get into 6th, 7th, 8th grade math. The identity property of addition. Identity basically means like the number keeps its identity, it keeps what it is. So the identity property of addition says that any number plus 0 is the number. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 keeps its identity of 5. The same idea applies for multiplication. Identity property of multiplication, any number times 1 is that number. So 5 times 1 is 5. And again, students will probably have seen these concepts. They'll be familiar with the idea that 5 plus 0 is 5 and 5 times 1 is 5. But this might be a new name, identity property. One thing I often do when I'm teaching these properties, commutative and associative in particular, and distributive, is I do try to associate the root words of these properties so that students understand and can associate some meaning. So commute means to move something, right? So we're moving the numbers around, changing the order. Associate, I've always told students, when you associate somebody, you spend time with them. You might be in the same group of friends. So if we're associating, our grouping is different. And to distribute something means to kind of hand something out, to give it to things. So in this case, we're kind of handing out the 5 to the 30 and the 7. That kind of idea. So I do try to make some kind of meaning with these root words so that the words commutative, associative, and distributive aren't just some random math word, but they can understand what the root meaning of those words are. Okay, that is it for our properties of addition and multiplication today. Have a great day.